Start this book, I think, like 15 years ago, and I just didn't get to it. I was going to do... So I read Count of Monte Cristo. I was starting 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea, and then going to do Robinson Crusoe after that, because I had an app on my phone that had all the books in it, and it seemed really interesting. So I finally read it. And if you like Castaway, you'll like this book.
Okay.
I liked Castaway. Now, I also put an asterisk on that because there's no dialogue, and you will not like it. No. So okay. This book is just Castaway for the most part. I was looking into some of the history of this, and pretty much all the versions of Robinson Crusoe are abridged. Every single version I could find online, for the most part, were abridged. Unless I wanted to spend upwards of $4,000 to $100,000.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah.
Why?
It seems like... I mean, those were mostly first editions and stuff. I don't know. It seems like a lot of people seem... Okay, so people reading this are like, right, he's just browbeating and going on about, like, the Bible for 100 pages. Just shut up sometimes. And it was deemed unnecessary, and so they all abridged it just to get rid of any of the unnecessary, just that type of stuff.
So do you recall when I did the Canterbury Tales, I said it gives you all the tales in full, but there were two moments where the person said, we're going to skip this one because it's just like a 50-page religious tract. I get it. You don't need it.
What they did. Basically.
Someone should do that with the brothers Karamazov from Dostoevsky.
Yeah. I wonder if it even says anything in this about that. But everyone's like, right, just ignore that because it's unnecessary. And in this, there was a little bit about... So he picked up like 3 Bibles from his shipwreck. There's a shipwreck. Yeah, Castaway. I don't know why he needed 3, first of all. But he he does get a little bit religious in parts of it, but it's barely there in this book. And most of it's about how he builds his civilization. So that was kind of interesting. Right, so starting off about the story. He's always wanted to go to sea. Mm-hmm. So interested in it. Chapter 1, he goes to sea. He gets very, very scared during a storm, and then they're like, hey, kid, that was a very basic storm. Don't worry about it.
Cast away and has a friend called Wilson?
No.
That was the only good bit of Castaway.
It was the best bit of Castaway, that's for sure. Tom Hanks was fantastic in it. He really carried it, of course, because he had to. But where was I going? Yes. Then there was another storm that even the sailors were afraid of. And I'm like, all right, so this is it. This is the shipwreck. In chapter 1, immediately, nope, they survive. I'm like, okay, that was weird. Very bad luck for this kid. He boards a second ship because someone on the ship's like, right, I don't want to travel with you anymore because you are scared of any type of storm and you're not fit for the sea.
It sounds like it, to be fair. Yeah.
So then what happens is he then goes to sea on a different ship. They get over... I don't know exactly what happens. Shipwreck overtaken by pirates or something. But he ends up as a slave around the Canaries.
I wasn't actually expecting that. Okay.
No. He ends up as a slave around the Canaries to some Moors and then ends up escaping them with some kid that he took... who was just kind of on the ship with him at the time. And I'm like, okay, cool. This is when he goes to the island. Nope, not then either. He gets saved by some people and then gets on another ship. But, all right.
Are we killing time? Are we padding out the story here?
This is 30 pages.
Oh, right, okay.
It sounds like I'm padding out the story. No. Then, after that, he gets on another ship. This is when the big shipwreck happens.
Then he gets on another ship.
Everyone dies. They're crashed up against like shore and cliffs and stuff. He barely survives because he almost drowns at this point. Later on in the story, though, he's like, I'm thinking he has such bad luck with ships. He needs to stay away from ships. He builds himself a friggin' canoe.
Of course he does.
He builds himself a canoe and tries going off the island just to see where it all goes. He gets caught up in a stream and almost loses sight of the island. I'm like, come on, man.
Do you like the character? Like, it kind of sounds like he's not
stupid
a likable
sometimes.
Character.
If I were... Does he have character traits? I'm not entirely sure.
Okay.
This really is... It's a survival story. It's all about seeing what happens with his survival. And I think that's kind of the interesting thing here, because you see how he starts off... So there's things on the ship that he gets a raft or creates a raft and goes out and back to the ship like 10 or 12 times. He ends up with a couple crates of gunpowder, some muskets. So he doesn't have nothing.
Okay. So here's the thing. Would I hate this?
I think it's not for you, for sure.
Of course, it's a classic, and it's one of those books you're supposed to read. It might be a Wilkie Collins book, where one of the old gentlemen is constantly reading Robinson Crusoe over and over again, because it's like his favourite book. You know, it's a proper classic, even to other classics.
1700s, early 1700s, before Gulliver's Travels.
We know that so I put it in with that style of stuff like Gulliver's Travels. When you get to those really old books that have no dialogue, I hate them. It took me a long time to get through Gulliver's Travels. I hated it in the end. And it's set at sea and everything like that, and I'm just like, I think I'm going to be so bored with this. And
there's
a shipwreck.
Much set at sea. To be fair, like the shipwreck happens, I think, 40, 50 pages in. It's very early on, I think. Chapter 5 already. I poor miserable Robinson Crusoe being shipwrecked during a dreadful storm. That's page 55.
Okay. So maybe I would like it then, I guess, or parts of it at least.
I think you would get something out of it. I don't think it's a book I could recommend to you necessarily, but I can recommend to the general public.
Okay.
Because it's all about him, like, right, here's how I get food, here's like how I created my cave, I made some pots from clay in the ground, and you're seeing like how he's able to survive, creates his house, creates the cave, and sets up trees around to create fencing and stuff. He breeds his goats, creates raisins, and I think that's kind of cool.
Okay.
He's also... one thing I didn't like at first, because he's like, I'm so worried, I'm glad I came here because there's cannibals and all this around this area. I'm like, well, that's just general racism. Like, not everyone here's cannibals. So what happens is he finds a footprint on the ground later on, and then some dead carcasses of humans, because there were cannibals on the island coming every like year or something like that.
Okay.
But he then doesn't sleep well for a year until like the next time he sets up like an array of guns to shoot 20 people if he needs to. He sees cannibals come onto the island at one point with different captives, and one of them escapes. He saves the one who escapes, and then now they're on the island together. So there's some interaction. The one who escapes then starts learning some English. You have some Spaniards who were then brought to the island, or one Spanish guy, and also was saved by like Robinson and his servant now, and then the servant's father was also brought to be eaten.
Okay.
Which was kind of an interesting thing. So they all work together to help build the society a little bit more, and then send them back to get the rest of the Spaniards that were there. There was like 17 of them. Okay. See if they could like all escape together. But during this time, some English arrive. They had just done a mutiny, and they bring 3 people, like the captain, the first and second mate, to be killed. They saved them as well, and then the rest of the book was basically them fighting off this mutiny and killing the people who tried this mutiny and got the ship and escaped. Okay. They didn't really do anything with the Spaniards. They hadn't arrived yet.
So...
But, yeah.
One question I'm curious about then, because sometimes we have classics that are good, and sometimes we have classics just because they're old. George Eliot. This is, of course, from your pre-Victorian time, where the quantity of books is very few.
Yes.
So, is this good enough to be a classic, or is it just there were like 3 books that came out in that time period, and here's one of them. What do you think?
I think it does deserve to be a classic.
Okay.
I don't know what to say for some of his others. You have one that you will be reading, which I think you will really love. But
I do, don't I? I
you
thought
have Mall Flanders,
yes,
which I think will be fantastic for you. But we'll see what you think.
Is it going to have no dialogue?
I don't know. We can look at that later. But no, I think that this one is exciting enough. It really makes you think, like, what would I do in this situation? How he gets through all these different moments, which is really cool. This is book 1 of 3.
Oh, so there's 2 sequels to
There
this.
are 2 sequels to this. So he ends in the epilogue. This one has the epilogue.
Yay!
He goes back to the island later because he's gotten tons of money and creates his own plantation. He's king of the island and all that. And then it ends with, I may perhaps give a farther account of hereafter. So that's one of them. This is also not the full title.
Did you just invent the cliffhanger?
He might have. I wonder if this has the full title in it. It is a good 3-sentence title.
Oh, wow.
It's basically like Robinson Crusoe and how I escaped the island, or got shipwrecked on the island, and how I escaped, and a true story written by me. Like, okay, but this isn't a true story.
No, but that was the thing at the time. Similar with Gulliver's Travels, this like fake travel log type thing, and they would present it as a true story. I was just looking this up because Gulliver's Travels has a similar title. That's also not the real title. The real title is Travels into Several Remote Nations of the World in 4 Parts by Lemuel Governor, first a surgeon and then captain of several ships.
There you go. Yeah.
I'm already bored. I'm not reading that.
Yeah. So this one's just like that. I don't know how easy it would be even to find the other books. The third one, I think, was just almost never released.
So maybe... I mean, presumably they're not as good, right? Like, this is the famous one for a reason, I assume.
Very easy to get through. 273, I think, is the number of pages. Generally large enough text as well.
Short enough pages there by the looks of things,
Each chapter, I think, is maybe 20 pages. I got through it very quickly. I told you, like, right, I'll probably have 2 books for you this month, and then got through this one in the last, like, couple days.
Yeah,
it was a lot of fun, I think, overall. Top book of the year, probably not, but I'd still put it around the same level as Frankenstein.
Okay.